We know their World Cup qualifiers have been rescheduled. So first up will be March 25th. You can catch that match right here on OneSoccer. They'll actually be at Exploria Stadium, where the She Believes Cup is happening right now in Orlando, Florida. They're taking on Bermuda. I'll start with you, Gareth. Just what do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, Victor Montagliani from CONCACAF basically confirmed that this would be the case in an interview that he did right here on OneSoccer a few weeks back. It's unfortunate. It honestly stinks in a way because you want to take advantage of home field advantage. Like, there's no question about it that it would have been more difficult for Bermuda getting away from an advantageous climate like Orlando and coming up here and playing in Toronto, where the weather's still unpredictable come the end of March. So Canada is playing at a disadvantage, and I think that the story's been undertold just how good Bermuda is. They're a decent team. It took Mexico till stoppage time, 90+ minutes, to go on and beat Bermuda when Bermuda traveled to Mexico about a year and a half ago. They went to Panama. They won a game as well. This is a good Bermudan side. What I should say is, though, we're still confident of Canada's ability, the team that they can bring to Orlando, that can get the job done. Fingers crossed that this country progresses and is more open-minded for athletes traveling in and out of the country by June. Suriname is loading up their side with basically a second team from the Netherlands, because they can bring in players who are eligible to play for Holland and bring them in to represent their country as well. It's going to be a tough game, and that game against Canada-Suriname has to be played on Canada soil to give our boys an actual advantage.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, obviously, we want to see the team back in Canada and as soon as possible. I got to say, I'm not totally surprised by this, though. I think, like, part of the reality right now is also dealing with all the kind of restrictions, all the rules and regulations that you have to follow around COVID and COVID transmission. And the fact is that Florida has become kind of Canada's home base at the minute. You know, they had the men's camp down there. The women are playing the She Believes Cup right now in Orlando. So I think it's a location where the protocols that have to be followed are kind of in place, and Canada probably has more familiarity down there than they might have in Toronto, where the protocols could be different if they were a bit stricter, depending on what the Canadian government asked for. So yeah, not surprising to see them down in Florida, but I agree with Wheels. We've got to see them back in our own country as soon as possible.
Could see a Canadian MLS club also making Florida home base once again, as they look like they'll have to relocate. As we stick with the Canadian men's team, as we know, also it's a busy year, right? Olympic qualifiers. They came out with their preliminary roster at 50. We know that's going to get trimmed down to 20. 10 Canadian Premier League players were on it. York Pacific leading the way with 3 players each from their roster being named. Gareth, what are your initial reactions to this?
It's a deep team, some intriguing names. 21 players come from MLS sides as well, Andy. You start to kind of connect the dots a little bit about what this means, because some players that were eligible to play for the Olympic team weren't named, and that just tells me they're a shoo-in to be part of John Herdman's side rather than Mauro Biello's under-23 team, but Herdman's side for Olympic qualifiers. Kamal Miller, Alistair Johnston at right back. We've been telling you about him. I mean, he's a young player that's going to go straight into the senior men's national team. And Liam Miller, who's on loan with Charlton right now. Those are 3 notable admissions who I think will all make their way to the senior men's national side. But a lot of good players. I think Canada's deep at goalkeeper, deep at wing back as well, and deep down the attacking roles in terms of the attack as well. So it's some interesting names. But we'll see if Buchanan, Corbiano, and some others don't end up playing for the under-23s and go up and playing for Canada in the World Cup qualifiers instead.
Yeah, those were some big omissions, Miller and Johnston, for good reasons, obviously, with the World Cup qualifiers being a possibility. One that was a disappointing omission to me was Tristan Borges. Look, I know he hasn't played any football over the past year, but I think when you look at the fact that Noah Verhoeven is still there, Terran Campbell, you know, a couple of CPL players who didn't have a good 2020 at the Island Games, to leave Tristan Borges off, it really shows how far his stock has fallen, and he's a player who badly needs a transfer and a way out of Leuven.